My name is Richard Sprink, and this is Franklin Boulevard Media. So I grew up in a small town right outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I spent the majority of my life up there living in the Midwest. And through trials and tribulations, it has brought me down here to Charlotte, but most recently Gastonia. So I joke around that I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I've dabbled in a lot of different things, initially going to school for business, but ultimately having a passion for just knowledge, right? I want to learn and do everything. And so at a point in my career, professional career, I was working in hospitality management. I took a time out and I started a little construction outfit where I was doing decks and siding and taking on jobs. And I ended up getting a subcontracted to build a deck at a brewery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Brew City, right? Miller's hometown. And an up-and-coming craft brewery had brought me in and liked the work I was doing and kind of asked me to do some other projects and then asked me to come on full time. So ultimately going from like, hey, can you help build this deck to how do can you put in this tank or this fermenter or can you help brew beer? And I was like, I mean, sure, I can figure it out. Well, it's kind of sparked something in me that, brought up, just a lot of different aspects of things I do love in work, the camaraderie of sales, I like, the nightlife. I like a lot of different things. And so all of that combined, the ownership of this brewery was like, man, you'd be really good at sales. You're just, I love what you're doing out there and making the beer. You're doing things at our brew pub. And so me and the owner of that brewery went across and opened up about 30 states nationally where we sold our beer. We'd go and we'd meet with a distributor. And this is, the United States, so you have a 3-tier system, right? So you got to sell it to a distributor who then turns around and sells it to your liquor store or your bar, who then sells it to the customer that's going to drink the beer, right? And so he kind of taught me the industry, and we went out and opened up 30 different states across the country where we sold our beer to distributors and then managed those distributors and the fact that, they had inventory at all times, they were priced appropriately, we were giving them promotional support to go and get the placements and get people to drink our products. Through that is where I caught the eye of a California brewery called Ballast Point. Ballast Point's kind of most notable for their IPAs and West Coast craft beer. But what's so interesting about them as an organization is the culture they had and the fact that they sold for $1 billion to Constellation Brands, which is Corona, right, as most people would know it. Corona took a giant bet on, they saw what was happening in craft beer in the 2010 to 2015 era of all these breweries coming in, even here in Charlotte. And they were like, we're going to bet on us having some ownership stake of a craft brewery because we feel that there's going to be about 5 that shake out your Sierra Nevadas, your Sammy Bostons, Boston Lager, things like that. So they bet on Ballast Point and bought it for $1 billion, which upset the industry. All these breweries were like, they're selling for $1 billion. What am I worth? And so, think very small entrepreneurial build to a giant corporate, structure, and they kind of molded. I molded very well because I have some of that business background, and so I then worked for Constellation Brands and proudly, helped them with all sorts of different projects. And just it's kind of funny. So not to go backwards, but starting in never thinking I would work in alcohol sales or in this industry, to starting to get a passion for it, to going to get to me it was getting called to the majors. If you're into craft beer, Ballast Point was one of the top rated IPAs you could really get in the country. And then from there just kind of molding into Corona, which is somebody that's been very successful over the last 20 years, and then kind of learning all along the way. And from just experience in other states to experience in all assets of beverage. And that has brought me to North Carolina ultimately. So to give you a full circle, when I was working for the brewery in Milwaukee and I met the guys in San Diego, they were like, we really like you, and one of these days we're going to steal you away. And I was like, you wouldn't have to try too hard because I want to do the next step. And so they said, we have a position for you, but it's in North Carolina. And I really had to kind of go, I'd never been to North Carolina, and so I'd never been to Charlotte. And I had to do a lot of soul searching, but I took a leap of faith as I believed in the brand and I believed in what they were doing. And I was like, I think I can make a difference. And so I, without ever coming down here to look at a place, just got a pod and packed up my truck and drove down and lived in a hotel for 2 weeks until I was able to rent a spot in Charlotte, in Plaza Midwood, which kind of really was a cool spot to first come into town and learn about, because that's where kind of all the cool stuff's happening, right? And then while I stayed here, and grew the brand for Ballast Point and ultimately Constellation, I had made a lot of contacts across the Southeast. I got to learn the culture of the South, enjoy the weather first and foremost. But, there's something really special that happens here. And it's the fact that Charlotte's kind of this hub where you can get to the beach in 3 hours, you can get to the mountains in 2 hours, you're in Atlanta in 3.5 hours. You got an airport that gets you anywhere direct in the country 10 times a day. I haven't had a layover in 5 years, and it's the most magical thing in the world. But it's exciting, and so I kind of found a home here in North Carolina, and but that's what kind of brought me down here, is just a series of happenings that were all by chance that kind of led me here. So, when I went to go look for a house, with Charlotte being as budding and growing as it is, it was really challenging to look for something in a realistic price range. And I wasn't looking cheap. I mean, I was looking at spending $300 on something that I could purchase. And so as I looked, my realtors kind of said, well, the outskirts of Charlotte are really happening. Look at Belmont, look at Mount Holly, Concord, Huntersville. But everything I saw was just, it wasn't me, and it was getting beaten out. It's a very aggressive real estate industry right now. So I'd go in and look at a house and I'd love it, and I'd say, I'll put an offer in of asking with no contingencies. And then somebody'd come in above me and go, I'll give you 10 grand cash on top of that. And I would get beat out. And so after about, I'd say 10 houses and just being defeated, my realtor goes, would you ever consider Gastonia? And I said, what's that? They said, well, it's a little bit further. And I was like, yeah, I never heard of Gastonia. And he's like, it's a little bit further, but I think you'll really like it. You're going to get a lot more home for the dollar, and it's a really cool community. She goes, I live in Gastonia, if you didn't know that. I was like, really? And I was like, okay, well, I'll take a look. And so she sent me a couple of houses on the MLS site via email that were in Gastonia. And the first one I saw was over in an area called Wesley Acres, which is the house I actually live in today. It was right across from Hunter Huss High School. And as I came into town, I came up 85 from Charlotte, got off on exit 19, drove over, saw a little downtown as I was driving in, and it's kind of cool. Like, it's a little town that I'm used to, because again, growing up in Wisconsin, I lived in a small town of about 1,500 people, which was surrounded by a bunch of other little small towns. But we always went to, an area of Wisconsin called Waukesha, which is the very similar pocket of the, you think about the Charlotte to Gastonia, it's Milwaukee to Waukesha. It's very similar. It's a suburb that's up and coming, 70 to 100,000 people in Waukesha, cool little downtown area, but people have homes and lives, and their legacies are there, fourth, fifth generation people that grew up in Waukesha. Charlotte was interesting because I don't think I met anybody that's from Charlotte when I lived in Charlotte, I'll tell you that. So when I came to Gastonia, for the first year, I really didn't do much in town. I ended up getting the house. It was amazing. I got it for, a steal, and absolutely a gem of a home. And the neighbors were super friendly right away. I was the youngest guy in the neighborhood. There was a lot of blue hairs in my neighborhood, and it's slowly but surely young couples coming in, which is kind of cool. I've met so many people just in my little area. But that first year, I would go into Charlotte to hang out. And about, probably after my... my girlfriend at the time, or now, Melissa, got a job at Icons. And so she's like, you got to come see me on your ride home. You got to come see me on your ride home. And so, and I like that, the drinks are affordable. People are hanging out. There's a livelihood that you're just not getting in the city, where you have a lot of, people specifically in Plaza Midwood and Noda that are transplants. Again, they're not from there. They're being someone they're not. They're just not authentic, right? And I think a lot about that with everything that happens today is, authenticity is huge in what people look for. It was interesting and it was fun, and it kind of like sparked this energy in me where I wanted to explore more. And so then it's like, what else is here, right? And that led me to going into Freeman's for the first time. We were going to dinner one night, and we had reservations, and we were a little bit early. And so I said, let's go check out this bar across the street downtown. And I walk in, and I work in the alcohol industry, and I work for an alcoholic seltzer now. And so I go up to the bar, and it's the owner actually working, Brad Freeman. And I go, do you guys have any seltzers here by any chance? I work for a company called Press that makes a White Claw or Truly kind of product, much better. But he goes, it's really funny. I have one. It's called Press. Have you ever heard of it? And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Are you serious right now? Like, you carry the product I sell. I run this company. And he goes, yeah. He's like, we didn't want to carry the other ones. We wanted to be different. We wanted to have something that stood out. And I really like this product. And I was like, my man. And so then I started hanging out there. And then other things started to develop in Gastonia, like Pita Wheel popped up. I started going down to Filthy Lou's. I would check out the Citycade. I started finding a barber here. I started finding my dentist here. I started finding my doctor here. And all of a sudden, I felt like I had this great community surrounding me of like people that led me to other people because they were from here and they're authentic, right? My barber's telling me, you need someone to clean your yard? I got a kid. I know him since he was a little kid. If he doesn't do a good job, tell me and I'll kick his ass kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, he'll come blow your leaves. He'll do a great job, and that kind of stuff. Where all of a sudden now I'm moving and shaking and I'm meeting the actual people of Gastonia versus just being here as a transplant. For the last 12, 13 years now, I've traveled the country, all 48 states continuously for work. And when I do, you think about what alcohol is it surrounds all the things that people like to do to either let loose or, celebrate or whatever you want to classify it as, right? So it's sporting events, it's concerts, it's family gatherings, it's you name it. And so bars and restaurants, first and foremost, from the diviest of dive bars to some high-end, cocktail places in Manhattan. And so what's interesting to me about Gastonia, specifically in the vibe here, is that, people I mentioned earlier, authenticity, right? And there's three things that a lot of people look for in today's world when they want to either live or be around or purchase a product, right? They look for authenticity. They want something that speaks to them. They want convenience, right? Which Gastonia definitely has with everything that's popped up between. I got a Target here, I got multiple Walmarts, I got restaurants, all the things I would take 45 minutes to go a mile to drive in Charlotte to get, I got here, and I love it, and it's accessible. I got a mall, I got all sorts of things, I got multiple Planet Fitnesses, I got, you name it, the city's growing. And the other thing is it's like, thinking about better for you or trade up, right? I want something that's authentic, I want it to be convenient, and I want it to be good for me as a person, right? And what I like about the energy and the vibe here versus some of the other places is some of the other places, you lose that authenticity because it becomes touristy, right? Or it becomes that spot where like everybody comes in, you go to Austin, Texas, everybody wants to go to Dirty 6th Street and hang out at all the bars. And it's not what it once was, right? Same thing when you think about a lot of pockets of the country like that. Noda, what it once was when I moved here in Charlotte, is night and day different, right? Even Plaza Midwood is night and day different. And some of those dive bars and what I loved about Charlotte, that gritty kind of a music scene unheard of because there was 20 different 200-person venues across the city. You can go see live music any night of the week. Half that stuff's gone. And so Gastonia still has that. But there's things that are coming in here that are that trade-up better for you option to help elevate the things that are existing, right? You're not seeing, the old bar getting torn down. You're seeing that old bar still thrive with a new bar going next to it, right? Thinking about going back to Freeman's and Whiskars or Shep's or the places downtown that have been staples for years, but rising tide floats all ships, right? This isn't like I'm tearing down the double doors to build a college parking lot. This is, hey, we're gonna, rise. And so I like that. And I like the fact that I can go get a high-end cocktail and a cigar and then go across the street to an Irish pub and get a pint and a shot of Jameson and watch some shitty karaoke. I like that. And so I think that's unique, and you're seeing it where there's a trade-up option happening here, and it's creating kind of a synergy, right? You're seeing what I like about it is it's not just the high-end people in downtown. It's a mix. It's a mix of people. It's not segregated, right? It's blended, and I like that. You're seeing it with a lot of things that are popping up in Gastonia specifically. And that's what and then obviously Western North Carolina is gorgeous, man. You got Crowders, you got so much cool stuff out here. The scene I have every Saturday, I do this little passion project where I try to go to a different bar in Western North Carolina. And so this last Saturday, we went up to Mountaineer Tavern in Kings Mountain. If you haven't been, it's behind the BP. It's part of the back of the gas station. But it was a good-ass time. There was a girl named Tequila that bought me a shot of Fireball that was 5 sheets to the wind. It was hilarious. We had an awesome time for a little time we were there. What a great spot. And their slogan is best damn bar ever. And it was kind of cool. But we've gone up to this, Wayno's Silver Bullet outside of Hickory. It's a little honky-tonk brown bag bar. I've gone into Dallas, and obviously I've gone down to Clover and checked out Last Call. I mean, I like doing that where you see what's going on in these little communities and checking out the scene kind of thing, right? And so I recommend it. I recommend it big time because for what I have in the foundation I'm able to set for myself and my family and what I want to build, I couldn't have done it anywhere else, really. The convenience that I'm this close to the airport. I have, again, everything at my fingertips with, commerce, restaurants, but, it can only extrapolate from here. And the investments being made in, the ballpark and the Fuse District and all that entertainment stuff coming is exciting. Interesting story, by the way. I was in Whiskars, and I had a gentleman that was just making small talk with Jacob, ask me something, and he goes, "Man," he's like, "we just moved here," and I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, we bought this really cool house. You know, we saw it online in this like architectural website, and you're not gonna believe this. I have to show you a picture of this house." And he pulls his phone out, and he's flipping through it, and he shows me the picture, and I was like, "Get the fuck out of here! You're my neighbor." He lives in the house next door to me. Literally. And he's like, I used to be a creative director for Universal Music, and now I have a graphic design company, but I still do a lot of singer-songwriter, and I write. I do a lot of composition. And yep, right next to me. He goes, "You tell you what, on Saturday, I got 3 people from Nashville coming out, singer-songwriters. I like a lot of folk kind of music, and I write, and I've written a lot of stuff." He's like, "Why don't you come over? We're having a house party where I'm going to have..." They come over about 3 days before, and we'll write songs for 3 days, and we'll perform them on Saturday. And I was like, "Get out of here. I'll come check it out, man. I'll bring some press," you know. And I walked in kind of being the odd man out because I didn't know anybody, and Steve was really welcoming. And they had a bunch of like 25 seats probably set up, and this really cool, unique house in that Wesley Acres area. And the main room is like a giant grand cathedral ceiling kind of room, and the acoustics in it are great. You have a little PA set up, 3 acoustic guitars, 3 different people. They each sang a song solo, and it was about, I don't know, 15 to 20 songs they sang entirely, and for about 2 hours they played just songs that they had written, and they would tell you like I joked around, it's like Gastonia storytellers, right? Like VH1 style, where in between each song, he's like, you know, this one was me and my wife were fighting, and, you know, this is what was going on in my relationship and where I was coming from when I wrote this song. And so, you know, you guys tell me what you think, and then he'd play it, and it was amazing. And then he's like, "You want to see my studio?" And we go upstairs, and he's got all sorts of stuff up there, and he's a very, very talented guy. When he sang some of his songs, I was blown away. I was like, "Holy shit, this isn't like some guy that's just..." I mean, it was really talented folks. From one girl had her merch. She's a singer-songwriter based out of Nashville. She just got just released something on Spotify that's in Apple Music. You know, they were just people trying to get into the industry, and it's Steve's passion project. He says, "I'll do more of these. I'll do them probably 3-4 times a year. We'll bring in different styles of music and different people to help collaborate and just build upon what we're kind of doing here." And it was kind of cool to be one of the first 25 people to see that, right? In Gastonia, yeah. So, you know, I invest a lot in the community that invests in us, right? So, you know, even though it's not the top seller for certain places, you know, I'm always in there supporting it and purchasing it for people that want to try something more upscale and something different, right? Something unique, and not just another White Claw Truly, right? And I don't mean to call them out by name, but, you know, there's just a lot of this. Consumer packaged goods are always funny to me because it always comes across in a way of, as a category of anything you name it gets popular, you get good, better, best, or value, mainstream, and upscale, right? So, you know, I've had a really unique opportunity to be mentored by Bruce Jacobson, who ran Constellation for many years, and he would take me into grocery stores and just like break me like wild horses. We'd walk down the spice aisle. He's like, "What do you see?" And I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, you see Kroger brand spices, right? Where somebody that wants value, they want spice, but you know they don't want to pay the premium, right? You see mainstream, which is like McCormick, right? Duh, Montreal steak seasoning, put that shit on everything. But then you see those glass bottles that are like a little more upscale. Now, chances are, Rick, all of those are the same product. I mean, it's all oregano, but somebody wants it based on cost. Somebody wants it because they like the name brand, and then somebody wants something that makes them feel better because it's in a glass bottle and says organic." He's like, "Walk down the non-alcoholic seltzer aisle. You have Kroger brand spices or Harris or you know, seltzers like Harris Teeter brand seltzer. You'll have LaCroix, which is the mainstream. That's what people think when they think non-alcoholic seltzer. Then you have San Pellegrino." He'd be driving by a car dealership. He's like, "You got Kia. It's a good car. It still works. It's value, but somebody that's purchasing that is thinking about it because of the value that they're paying for it." You have mainstream, Ford and Chevy. You know, that's the thing you think about living in America when you think about a domestic car. And then there's always somebody that's like, "I want a Porsche, or I want a Lambo. I want something a little nicer," right? And that's with everything. It doesn't matter what it is. Any consumer packaged good, any consumer good, period, will always segment that way. And press wants to be that upscale proposition, something that's, you know, I don't want mainstream that doesn't have flavor. I want something that tastes great, that resonates with me, that's authentic and convenient, and it's upscale. And that's kind of where our founder, Amy Wahlberg, has developed. And so we embody that with the sales team I've oversee is, you know, we talk about are you delivering the premium seltzer experience? Are you giving that upscale when everything you do, right? When we're recapping efforts in the market, or we're spending time with a retailer, or I'm, meeting a consumer in a bar for the first time that's never had press, and I'm talking to them about it, right? I always want to provide that in everything I do and try to just offer that premium, that upscale opportunity, right? And so with press in this community, I'm going to continue to invest. I do what I can. I donate product where I can. I've done things with some of the entrepreneurs in town that have supported me. I've looked at doing stuff with, I'd love to do something with the honey hunters. I'd love to maybe get some little press sign on that wall if I could ever get it carried in there. But it's those types of things that, I find these communities to be the value communities that we see when we think about our consumers, right? Somebody wants a little more trade up. They want something nicer. They don't want the norm. And we're here to kind of support that. I try to bring press into this as much as I can with Gastonia and where I go and what I do and how I do things. But ultimately, I do it because I love it, right? I love the product. So
let me ask you a question. So it's a guarantee that there will be some press at the Franklin Boulevard launch party?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. You just tell me what you need, man. I got you.